Hi, I'm Owen Casey Stevens, and this is the story of how my first house briefly had a moat. My wife and I bought a house in the 1990s, and it was a tiny little fixer-upper kind of thing, and we bought it from some friends of the family who held the mortgage, and I'll be honest with you, we paid less for that house than we subsequently paid for our first new car. And that house had been held by a very nice elderly lady who had run a hairstyling business out of one end of it, and as a result it had two front doors. And she had not been in the house for many months, possibly a few years, by the time we bought it. And some people at the city of Norman apparently had marked down the house as unoccupied, or some workmen had noticed that no one was in it, because shortly after we bought it and moved in, they had to do some work on one of the water mains that ran along the street right in front of our house, and assumed that there was no one in the house, and therefore no reason that they could not dig a 10-foot deep, 5-foot wide trench right across our driveway. It started at one end of our property, ran along the street, went through the driveway, all the way along our front yard, all the way to the neighbor's house. And our car was in the driveway at the time they dug this. It was not in a garage, it was not under a tarp, it was just sitting there, plain as day. And so I came out to go to work only to discover that we now had a moat, a 5-foot wide, 10-foot deep moat. And as I was trying to catch the attention of someone on the workforce to indicate that perhaps they should have asked me to move my car before they cut it off with a giant trench, someone on that force who was using a backhoe hit the water main and began to flood the dang thing. They had to scramble to get everybody out of it, naturally, and that should absolutely be their priority, and eventually they got the water main turned off, but for a few days there was a big trench full of water in front of my house. Now, they did eventually get a big steel plate, which they gently laid over the trench. I don't recall them bolting it down or anything useful, but it was possible to drive our car carefully over it, and then we just didn't park in our driveway for a little bit. But we did have a game that weekend, because we frequently had role-playing games at our house, so a bunch of my friends came over, and we got to game, the only time I've ever gotten to game, in a house defended by a moat. Good times.